there's a huge amount of points and miles being pushed out into the marketplace, and that's a good thing. It shows you how well the loyalty programs are doing. But the result of all of that is inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. So we might start to see more point devaluations coming, or revaluations might be a better phrase. However, from my viewpoint, with my Loyalty Security Alliance hat on, the fraudsters have seen how much money is now sitting in all of these accounts, and because most of it is digital, online, starting to get into wallets. The amount of account takeover has risen dramatically, and more and more points are getting stolen. And even if they aren't getting stolen, the number of attacks that are happening on these corporate systems is getting larger and larger. One public one recently with our friends at Qantas, so it's almost 5.5 million records stolen. That was a big cyber attack, but that's also going on at I think a much lower level. One of the bits that the fraudsters are starting to use in terms of AI is, rather than going after the big data breaches, they're getting malware onto people's computers, and then from that they're stealing all your session cookies. So they can get around things like two-factor authentication, and if you've got your password stored within your cookies, they're straight into your account, and that's going to be a big challenge next year.
25 has been definitely a challenging year for us in loyalty, and I'd say the biggest challenge that we're facing into in 26 is how do we still remain relevant as a loyalty company and in the mind of our customer? There's debate in the industry at the moment about have we hit peak loyalty, and if we kind of peel back the data, it's kind of playing out that maybe we have, because customers are now engaged in more loyalty programs than they've ever been before. Each of us on average now are members of like 10 plus different loyalty programs. And that kind of creates the environment where we're at risk of burnout or loyalty fatigue. And so we're going to continue to have to think about like how can we differentiate in an even more crowded marketplace. And we're starting to see some of this activity play out now. And historically, we've always like lent on the earn and burn ratios of our products and the financial benefits that we offer to our customers to try and differentiate and capture mind share. That's become now more of a hygiene factor. And finding differentiation is often tapping into how do we form an emotional connection with our customers, not just a financial connection. And so with that, we're seeing a lot of different tactics and experiments to see how we can derive that emotional connection. And a lot of that is playing out from experiences that programs offer. That money can't buy access.
Three big challenges in 2025. I think these are challenges that loyalty programs have faced in the past, and I also believe that these are challenges that we're going to continue to face going forward. And it shows the value of the loyalty program that these has remained to be the challenges, but again, we continue to address them and we continue to see what's the best way to tackle them. So first is on fraud and cybersecurity. Loyalty fraud has been historically a great area for fraudsters to go and try to see how they can break into it. And in 2025, we've seen quite a lot of activity in this space on both sides, on the sides of the bad actors trying to commit fraud and trying to find ways to leverage the loyalty programs to their benefit, but also on the provider's side. And we've invested quite heavily in fraud in 2025 to combat this and to target this. And what's happened in 2025, and I believe will start to mature a lot more in 2026, is the use of AI to combat fraud, to understand what is happening and to actually go into a fraud prevention mechanism rather than combating it after the fact. So a lot of attention on fraud, and because of the challenge it poses to loyalty programs in 2025, and continued focus on this in 2026. The second big challenge we've seen in 2025 has been around trust and transparency. So programs have continued to evolve and change and update the way they do things, and sometimes that's eroded a bit of customer trust because of the lack of transparency that's been provided by the program there. And now with the emergence of AI, it's quite easy for customers to understand what's happening and to find out what's happening. And so we believe that this programs will have to target this challenge in 2026 and address it heads on and be a lot more transparent in order to keep their customer trust and to be sharing upfront any potential changes they're coming, why they're coming, what's happening with the program, and what the impact on the customer is going to be on that. And finally, it's been around delivering a consistent experience for the user, irrespective of the channel that they're interacting with the brand with. And this has been caused by a lot of siloed systems. This has been caused by a lot of different interaction channels that the customer has. And there hasn't necessarily been anything that can help stitch that experience together end to end. And so sometimes the experience with a program or a brand can be quite different depending on which channel the customer is interacting with. And especially in a travel industry where your interaction is, I would say, a hybrid interaction. You have a online or digital interaction when you're buying your product, but then you have a physical interaction when you're actually traveling, when you're flying or when you're at the hotel. And trying to join this all together to give a consistent experience has been quite a challenge and will continue to be something that we'll work on targeting in 2026, because in the end, when customers are demanding personalization and demanding a better experience, they want that experience to be personalized and to be catered to them end to end, not just in the digital channel or not just in the physical interface, but to really have this end to end view of them. So, three challenges around fraud, trust, and a consistent experience that we've seen last year and we'll continue to see addressed more and more in 2026.
A lot of the challenges that I saw programs face in 2025 have actually been going back a few years. And it's what I'm starting to call the great genericization of loyalty across industries. And what we're seeing in the marketplace is many brands are designing programs or refreshing programs that have very similar benefits, like birthday reward being a good example of one. And this could be for many reasons, right? This comes from competitive assessments. It often comes from the out-of-the-box features that your loyalty program provider might have. The challenge with these is that while they seem good on paper and at the service level, and while you might see some lift in customer behavior for a certain amount of time once you unveil programs like these, what happens is that you end up looking like everybody else in an already very saturated market. So it gives you the illusion of success, and you might see some temporary results for a year or two, but that quickly starts to sputter out when you don't have a program that's bespoke to your brand or has anything interesting or differentiated about it relative to others in your category.
Key challenges in 2025 that I saw were more to do with fundamentals. So because we saw that a lot of companies, a lot of operators wanted to do more. And what they found was that actually the fundamentals in their organization, whether that's how their business functions or how their technology functions, still needed to be fixed. And in many cases, they did not have the control over whether or not they could fix that themselves. Effectively, they relied on the bigger organizations to understand what it was they were trying to deliver, and the fact that some of those components they needed to get right. And I think there's a lesson there. You know, fundamentals, you can't ignore them. Eventually, they'll trip you up, or they'll be a barrier to you moving forward. So important to get those done. For 2026, I think the big challenges are going to be really around which technology to go with. Do we go with the AI and take a full, dive in head first? Do we tinker around the edges? Well, I think we said some of that last year as well. We're still seeing a bit of uncertainty. I think a lot of people are probably thinking that technology now, which was historically incredibly expensive to put in has become really quite affordable in most cases, and so they might be playing around with some replatforming. So I think the challenge for the future is going to be around tech, you know, and putting the chips in the right place. And let's watch that one with interest.
The problems for loyalty program right now is they have a lot of partnerships, right? So we look at the aviation programs, we look at the hotel loyalty programs, and they're trying really hard to work together. But they're working together in their own infrastructure. So what one of the products that we're working on, as you know, is the Universal Loyalty Wallet, which allows people with their, you know, their airline memberships, their hotel memberships, to start combining them into one environment, which means if an airline is working with a hotel program, that they can actually truly now collaborate on that one member and create these benefits that, you know, traditionally exist but are very hard to activate on. I think that's definitely one area where we're really going to be coming in at the forefront of, is this capability of being able to operate in one ecosystem, multiple programs. I think the other interesting feedback that we've had, and look, we've had many conversations on this, is how you become an everyday front of mind program. That's kind of like the holy grail, I guess, the oracle. And to the point where we speak to a lot of the programs already, particularly here in the Middle East, and they'll say, Jaci, we've got all of these businesses coming to us with all of these products, and we dearly love to work with them all, but our infrastructure doesn't allow for us to plug into them and to make sense of them. So with what we're bringing in at the base layer, which is a full brand new out of the ground microservices layer of infrastructure, it allows these big, you know, aviation hotel programs to all of a sudden be able to work with these partners and to create these collaborations.
We saw two main challenges in 2025. The first was decisions made in a vacuum. Brands that were really desperate to preserve margins made some sweeping program changes, sometimes blindly stripping point values or ditching customers' favorite perks. Instead of making changes grounded in customer insight, they ended up alienating and driving away some longtime members. I think the second challenge was brands falling into the discount trap. In response to consumers struggling in a tight economy, many went the overly simplistic route of just purely transactional loyalty, using points and promotions as their primary engagement strategy. And yes, points and promotions have their place, certainly. But the truth is that the customers you win with discounts can be lost to the next best deal. And your profit margins really feel the pain from that approach as well. I think marketers are realizing that sustainable loyalty isn't built on transactions alone. It's really built on emotional connection and value that goes beyond the price tag. I think the challenge for 2026 is, how do you move from being the brand with the best offer to being the brand that customers actually care about?
A new year has just started. You look back into the last year, see, you know, what kept you busy, right? And again, I think that the theme across is the technological transformation and revolution. Again, it touches all areas of our lives. It will change a lot. It will change a lot of how we work, how we interact with our customers. It will change our job profiles. It will change our products, our platforms. So managing that, understanding, keeping up with the speed, and at the same time delivering value internally to our organization, delivering value to our customers in an operationally and commercially sustainable manner, I think is a challenge that we had to face in 2025, and we started to master in various forms. And that is a challenge that will continue in 2026. I think that is a big aspect, because it's not just technology that is changing, it's the whole way we work, how we collaborate, that is changing. And we want to be at the forefront of that, and that means tackling those challenges.
In 2025, the challenges were shaped mostly by rising the expectation, the instant gratification. The communication was insanely, kind of saturating. and it was proving a long-term impact. But right now in 2026, we see that it will bring even a higher competitive intensity because, well, there are more companies growing in this niche. And the need for real-time integration, the stronger pressure for the return of investment, and the increasing complexity around data privacy and trust because, well, as the time evolves, we see that there are, well, more security issues. And so that's what the clients are expecting, even more and more security. And the execution, I think, will be the real challenge, not designing the strategy, but orchestrating it across. What do I mean by that? With the data sources, the channels, the correct partners, also the reward supply, and the governance and regulation. I think it's one of our pillars in loyalty marketing services.
Measuring incremental value and proving ROI has been a big challenge for all the loyalty programs that we talk to. And so I think that is going to continue to be one of the big challenges in 2026 as well. And if we're able to make progress on the measurement and convince all the skeptics that loyalty is in fact not a cost center but a value driver, then another one of the really important challenges that loyalty programs are going to face is how do we then optimize the incremental value? How do we identify and learn what are the most effective levers we can pull to actually move the needle on the incremental value that we're creating, right? That's going to naturally be the next big challenge that loyalty programs are going to face once we solve the challenge of measuring incremental value.